I know that everyone's childhood is different and they're not all created equal. We're all raised in different systems, different geographies and communities and families. But in uh, my family had its own issues. But I remember the games that I played as a child. And if we're really honest with ourselves, games are an important part of our lives. And often very early, we learn to play various games. These games might be ones that we play inside. They might like tag or hide and seek, um, games with balls, baseball, football, basketball, volleyball, softball, these kinds of things. Or they may be like board games, like checkers and Candyland, Shoots and Ladders, maybe some of these older games, or even online games, right? Uh, Multiplayer games online. I can't even think of the names right now. But very early in life, we learn to play these games. And as we progress in age, the principles of these games begin to shift. And really they have implications for how we do life later. But early on in life, if we had an opportunity to play these kinds of games, um, perhaps in those preschool years, those early years, these games are based on simple rules. I remember back playing Shoots and Ladders and Candyland, games like that. Uh, they're very basic. You hit that little spinner, roll the dice, move your pieces, etc. And the game has very basic rules that are followed. But later on, as I recall, the games progressed. Right, I remember learning to play tic tac toe and on scrap paper at school or at restaurants or on trips. I learned to play Connect Four and checkers. You remember the little travel checkers, the magnetic boards? These games still based on cause and effect, linear cause and effect kind of processes, but strategies begin to emerge, right? As we learn how to win. I remember dropping the little pieces in Connect Four and kind of strategizing. I put here, anticipate maybe my opponent will place there. Strategies begin to emerge. But at higher levels, I recall when I first started playing chess. And recently, my son and I have begun playing chess and got him a chessboard, and he's picked it up really fast. In fact, I noticed the faster I play with him, he tends to beat me. But if I slow the game down, I'm able to strategize and beat him. Video games are examples as well. These games require complex strategies and they require attention to various and different levels, different dimensions in order to win the game. These, as some have said, require the ability to think systemically because they move away from linear cause and effect to an understanding of the whole game. When we come into this world, we respond in very basic ways. We eat, we sleep, we go to the bathroom, these kinds of things. We smile to get, etc. But as we grow older, things get more complicated. The rules begin to change, our roles begin to change, and we learn to and adapt to these new rules and roles. We learn to adapt to the game of life. We begin to learn our role, and we learn the rules as we engage in people, as we step into relationships in the uh, different relationship systems that we're a part. And through trial, through error, through experience, we learn these rules. We learn what doesn't work. We learn what works. We learn what to avoid. And we begin to, over time, adjust and get better as things get more complex. But I think there's a point where we kind of slow down, or we forget that we need to continue to think and process systemically. This course is going to help us think in that way. The reality is, for us to be successful, for us to understand how to be effective in our relationships, we've got to come to terms with who we are. That is, we've got to focus on self. Now, I don't mean selfishness. I don't mean being selfish, but I mean really a process of differentiation, understanding who we are in relation to other people. And this is something that I don't think people do very well. Um, and I find this really intriguing. What I want to do, let me give you an example of this. Have you ever felt anxious about going home for Christmas or Thanksgiving? And have you realized, or you probably noticed this, and there's a lot that's been said about it in media, social media, etc. Everybody kind of knows this, that when you go home, you go back into that family system, even if you live far away, geographic distance does not matter. When you go back into the system, you tend to pick right back up where you were when you were a child. We tend to default to the homeostatic pressures or homeostatic realities that were in place when we were children. This most often occurs because we have failed to differentiate within the context of our family system. And as this course unpacks and evolves, we're going to look at what that means, how to differentiate. We're going to in the next video, we're going to consider some historical background. We're going to look at Bowen and Friedman and how they impact and how they understood the necessity of differentiating. Thing is, you cannot will change in people. You can only change yourself. And if you want to change a system, no matter what that system is, whether it's your family, whether it's work, it doesn't matter if you're CEO, your parent, it doesn't matter if you're the leader of a nonprofit, it doesn't matter if you're in the military. This holds true universally. If you want to change a system, you must change yourself in while you're connected to that system. So kind of a universal rule. You can only change yourself in context or in relationship to that system. So what this course is going to explore is how to do that, what that looks like, so that we can be more effective leaders, whether in our homes, workplaces, nonprofits, education, doesn't matter. So that we can be better leaders, better people in the relationships in which we're a part. I look forward to being on this journey with you. Blessings.